The only thing I've done is gotten to know my neighbors because I just am super private, but I need to get to know them. But it is nice to hear firearms going off every weekend. Some of them fully auto. So sounds like I've got some good neighbors. Sounds like World War III actually next door. But I've got a character living next door. I haven't met him, but everybody knows who he is if I said his name. Sounds like the Terminator's next door. But sounds like they've got artillery simulators going off too. But I live out in the country now, not far enough. You know, it takes me an extra 25, 30 minutes to get to work now, just because I do live outside town. But side issue, health-wise, I've learned that if you take a good vitamin, mineral, powder supplement that's from organic sources that you can actually absorb, then you're not as hungry. Because you're not eating empty calories trying to get the nutrients. And the best products I've found, and when you purchase them from us, it also supports the broadcast, is InfoWarsTeam.com. And that's where the best, well, all the longevity products are there, but Beyond Tangy Tangerine, it's got the Mighty 90 minerals in it and vitamins. It's got the trace stuff that the mainstream media says you don't need. That's key for all those interactions. We've got the Rebound sports drink powder. It's got the B vitamins and all the rest of it. We've got the Pollen Burst and a bunch of other great products that don't advertise as weight loss. It's just that everybody that takes them loses weight. Aaron's lost in 7 months 65 pounds. And he's just not hungry as much because he takes the whey shakes and the stuff. So it's all available at InfoWarsTeam.com. And if we put InfoWarsTeam.com up on screen, there is a number on the site as well that you can call there on the site. Do they don't have the 1-800 number on the front of the site anymore? That's just because usually it's right up there on the top of the site. Well, I'm sure you can find it somewhere on there. There's a conference call number if you're a distributor there on the site. But again, InfoWarsTeam.com. And don't forget the online video bookstore, the T-shirts, all of it, books like Survivors. It's your purchases. I mean, without you, I can't run the nightly news. I can't have the websites. I can't do any of it. Plus, these are great products, great materials, info weapons, bumper stickers, citizen rule books, terrorist documents like the Constitution. It's all there, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv memberships. 877-551-1301 is the number to call if you got any questions or want to sign up and be a distributor and get discounts. 877-551-1301 as well, InfoWarsTeam.com. Okay, without further ado, I don't know why I haven't ever gotten this guy on. It's so great to have him here with us, one of the leading survivalist expert writers out there. But I know you don't like to toot your horn, but let's go back then to Patriots. 1991, you're writing it. How did you write about global governance coming via economic collapse? Because reading, The Patriot, and now the sequel Survivors, or Patriots, there it is. I mean, how did you know in 1991? And then I was asking you, you believe in the global government threat, but not that it's conspiratorial. And you were making the point that, no, it's just a system. It's not that it's in total control and under every rock, and I agree with you. It's that it's from the top, the compartmentalized system. They're trying to get control. They're trying to establish global government. It's not here yet. We can still reverse it. Please get into how you knew all this, how you broke it down, and then all the other facets of how you see these threats unfolding, including like where they try to crash the economy, you were saying during the break, and then that backfires on them. Please continue.
Well, I just see it as a logical progression. We live in a very fragile society. We have a system where our constitutional government is at risk. Anytime there's major disruption, there's always the possibility that someone may try to step in to, quote, restore order, unquote, and you end up with a government that's far, far worse, that you end up with total government. And I think people need to be vigilant, and if they're vigilant and well-prepared, they'll be in a position to hopefully speak up and do something about it. In a worst case, we could end up with a situation like I described in Patriots and in Survivors, where you end up with a power vacuum that's created by economic collapse, and a foreign occupying army comes in to restore order, and then you end up, as I described in Patriots, in a war of resistance, a guerrilla warfare situation where you're trying to restore constitutional government. God forbid we ever get to that point, but I think people need to be prepared even for that.
All right, let me stop you there. My frustration with great guests like yourself that are telling the truth is that everything you say, there's 50 points I want to make backing you up. But people can pull this up. The Banff, Canada, 2006 North American Union SPP meeting. Judicial Watch sued, got thousands of pages of documents, or right at about 1,000 pages, actually. And in there, the first thing they say in the meeting is, this is in my film Endgame, screenshots of it. A, keep this secret. We're going to have North American Union integration by stealth, but we're going to use military crises, drug crises, flu crises, economic crises to merge the governments. And now they're already doing that with cross regions with the drug war. And that's being announced. And they say, we'll use each other's foreign troops and each other's nations. And now it was always, oh, I was at a military base and the general said, get ready for the New World Order. To now we have the videos. We have the news articles where, generals questioned by Congress about plan for I-4 troops during crises, or Mexican troops to be used to fight U.S. terrorists, or NLEO-9, FEMA press release. 14 countries working with FEMA to drill on suppressing uprisings. John Ward Defense Authorization Act saying it's to suppress the states, the governor's councils, the rural councils, right out of Red Dawn, the tattletale squads, the clergy response teams. I mean, they're setting up for a suppression of civil war. And it looks like the globalists want to have that civil war with the American people, and they're going to call us the terrorist. When they come arrest Alex Jones or John Wesley Rawls, or James Wesley Rawls, when they do things like this, well, we're just the terrorist. And I mean, they're the ones gearing up for it. Your comments on that rant?
Well, it very well could be a big setup. I think, though, that the statists and globalists may be setting up a situation that's going to get out of their control. If they attempt to orchestrate a stock market collapse, or a banking panic, or something along that line, it could very well get away from them. They could end up with a situation where the rioting and looting gets completely out of control. Government agencies are unable or unwilling to respond. You could end up with individual police officers and firemen afraid to literally leave their home, leave their families unprotected, so they won't show up for work. That was what I described in Patriots.
That happened in New Orleans.
Yeah. And you also ended up with police officers looting, literally. I mean, they were caught on camera.
Well, let's face it. Our police are not as moral as they were, and the studies are there 50 years ago. In the old days, people were, not even that they were such tough guys, but it's like, hey, this is combat, we're going in. Nowadays, the whole culture at these mass shootings everywhere is sit there for 4 hours while you're told what to do by the feds. So now there's like this culture of being paralyzed.
Mm-hmm. Well, we could see a situation where, whether it's orchestrated or not, we could have a societal collapse. We could have things come completely unraveled. Again, the linchpin is the power grid. Things could come unraveled to the point where even someone who was hoping to be the one to come in and restore order and institute their brand of government, the situation could get completely out of their control. And we could see a complete unraveling where the cities become uninhabitable. Once the power grid goes down, there's about a 2 or 3 day supply of water in most civic water systems, that's gravity-fed from tanks. But there are very few cities that have end-to-end gravity-fed water. They're almost all dependent upon the power grid. So if the grid goes down, the water stops flowing, the toilets stop flushing, and then suddenly you have a huge public health crisis on your hands. The cities become uninhabitable. Commerce comes to a halt. You have this mass exodus of people from the big cities, what I refer to as the Golden Horde, pouring out of the cities. And it's a situation where it's difficult to get the apple cart back on its wheels.
Yeah, so much time has gone into building the infrastructure that it works really well, but it's super delicate. And expanding on that, it was like 5 years ago, a hurricane hit Texas. I forget which one. They hit all the time. And Houston flooded with about 5 feet of water. And we have a ranch in East Texas family land about 130 miles north of Houston. It's about 100 miles south of Dallas. Well, Buffalo, Texas is outside Buffalo, Texas, and Fairfield. And I just happened to be there hunting and doing some shooting when the hurricane hit. And I thought, well, I'll just go have fun and go hunting during the hurricane. I don't care, because it was just rainstorm by the time it hit there. And I was in the small towns. They were reporting on robberies, people getting shot, and there were hordes of people. And I'm saying it's illegal aliens because that was the main group, because there's something like 5 million illegal aliens in the Houston area, just everywhere. The illegal aliens were driven out, because that's all I saw, and were robbing and stuff because they were pushed into the countryside and they were getting shot and stuff. And the news didn't report on it, but I saw blurbs. I mean, they were getting shot. And there were also some other folks running around, but it was mainly the illegals because they were driven out of the city. I mean, can you? So that scenario, I saw that happen.
Same thing happened in New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. There were refugees as far as 400 or 500 miles away, and they brought this whole wake of a high crime rate with them, and that was just one localized area, essentially one big city that was badly affected. Imagine if every major city in the country simultaneously went through a major economic collapse and power grid failure. There's actually 3 power grids in the country, a Western grid, an Eastern grid, and the Texas grid. If the power grids go down, we could see major rioting and looting going on in virtually every urban area. And yes, there will be some pretty large ripple effects that come from that. I just pray that the majority of your listeners team up and be ready to hunker down. It means having a deep larder, being very well stocked up, very well trained, and keeping your radar up, basically, keeping an eye on the big picture, and being ready to at least rebuild, from the ground up, from your local area up, to reestablish commerce, reestablish law and order, and I mean constitutional law and order.
Well, I know that from previous events, when things get really bad, the police and others don't show up. And I cannot imagine what will happen. If the welfare checks didn't show up for a month, it would be burning cities. And then what's going to happen after the welfare class does burn down the city? Then there'll be even less infrastructure. It is going to be hellish.
Yes, we could. If you look at what's going on in Detroit right now, for example, where they're actually turning off streetlights because some of the suburbs of Detroit can't even afford to run streetlights. Then you end up, it's this cascade of events. You end up with a lack of police protection, no response from burglar alarm companies, for example. And then after people have, cleaned out these abandoned houses, then they resort to stripping out the copper wiring. So they're literally destroying the infrastructure. So even if the power grid were to come back up, there'd be, the infrastructure would be so destroyed that it would be months or years or even, conceivably even generations before.
Humans without a job who aren't self-sufficient are like locusts.
Yeah.
It's a cloud of grasshoppers.
In essence, you're right, Alex, because that's human nature. I'm a Christian, and I look at that the human heart is desperately wicked at its core. And it's only because of the restraint of things like Christian faith and the restraint that non-Christians are under because of civil government